Hello everybody, this is Dr. Samaح Imam. Today we are going to talk about this is our second lecture dealing with our course, which is the at sight and the consecutive translation. Now, to remind you of what we have been discussing last time, I'll give you a very small introduction about the course again. The goal of this course is to familiarize the students with the various meanings of a selected sample of words that are both common in current affairs and difficult to translate because their meaning change from one context to another. That is, we are going to deal with a sample of words that are selected. In order to discuss them, they are very much available in the current affairs, everyday news, and at the same time they are difficult to translate because they are used in various contexts. This context makes the meaning differs. So we have to be aware very much of the word context. Context. Now we are going to talk about the idea of context. Context is a very important element in the process of translation. You cannot translate unless you are very much aware of the context of the word you are dealing with. Now let's come back to what I've written about context. Okay, it's an essential factor that determines the process of translation. It plays a major role in determining the translator's choice of the suitable equivalent according to the context. To understand the importance of context to the process of translation, you have to consider the following. Now, any word or lexis has two types of meaning. Word. Another meaning for the word is lexis. Okay? There are two meanings. A lexical meaning or dictionary, and the second is technical or contextual meaning. Now let's see what's this. Dictionary or lexical meaning, and the second one is the technical or contextual meaning. Any word or lexis has two types of meaning. Dictionary meaning and technical meaning. By dictionary or lexical meaning, it implies what the word refers to in reality. For instance, the word lion refers to a type of animals that is wild and lives in the forest. The technical or the contextual meaning implies the various meanings of a word that change from one field to another. A very good example for this is the word statement. The dictionary meaning of the word statement means something said by someone. It comes from the verb state. To state, it means simply to say. But as far as the contextual meaning is concerned, it could mean the following. Number one, or number A, in a political context, in a political situation or text, it could mean bayan or tasrih. For instance, if we say, in the president's statement, he said that, etc. Okay? He said that he is very much concerned about the people of Egypt. Okay? In an economic context, it means taqrir muhasabi. For instance, if we say the company released its annual economic statement. Okay, I'm going to write you the examples now. Let's see. In his statement, President Mubarak announced that he is very much concerned about the poor. This is for a political context, political. For an economic one, in an economic context, the company released its annual financial statement. All right. For number C, in grammar, a statement means جملة خبرية. In English grammar, we have a statement, we have a question, and we have an exclamation. So in the grammar of English, we differentiate between statement which ends with a full stop, a question that ends with a question mark, and the exclamation which ends with an exclamation mark. Now let's go back to the objectives of this course. Okay. Accordingly, by the end of this part of the book, which deals with the at-site sentences, students would be able to do the following. Number one, discriminate the different meanings of the selected sample of words in various contexts. So you will be able to make the difference, notice the differences among the words according to their different contexts. And as I've been saying, and I will always be saying, that context is very important. Now, number two is to translate those words accurately, both as a consecutive or at-site translation. So actually this book, because it deals with both at-site and consecutive translation, so we are going to make use of these words and their differences and their different cognates in our job as translators. Number three will be another one which is very important. Another objective is learn about several rules for translation through critical analysis. That is to say, to analyze the model translations of the examples given by Dr. Anani, through which the students would be able to handle any text successfully. So we'll not be dealing with the sentences or the words which are in question only and that's it. No. We are going also to understand how the sentences have been translated, and the aim of selecting certain translations, how translations have been done, so that it's not only to learn about translating in an at-site or a consecutive way, but also to learn some of the rules that will help us in translation in general. Okay? Now, let's start with Unit 1. Unit 1. This unit handles the words access, action, and advice with their cognates. So actually we'll be dealing with three words: access, action, and advice with their cognates. Now cognates mean their different meanings or related meanings. Now the various meanings are given in examples with their translations. We'll see the words in context. Again, I'm repeating the word context. The exercises given are meant to check the students' knowledge and provide them with some translation skills. So after we finish discussing the sentences that have been given to us by Dr. Anani, we'll be talking or doing together an exercise on the words given to us. Now the aim of these exercises is just to check that you have acquired the necessary information about these different words, and also to check the way you translate. So they are just meant for practice and checking. Now as far as the first word, which is access, as far as this word is concerned, now let's see. This word has three major meanings. Now the first one, the sense of the word, refers to a kind of feeling. Let's see. In sentence number 1, when he heard of the collapse of his plan, he had an access of despair. Okay, so the part which is underlined, as you can see, an access of despair, it means that a feeling of despair, simply a meaning of despair. عندما سمع بانهيار مشروعه أو خطته، مشروعه أو خطته، استولى عليه اليأس. So it's a feeling. Okay, number 2, she felt fine in the morning but had an access of fever at lunchtime. Again, an access of fever. So let's go back to sentence number 1. An access of despair, that is شعور باليأس. An access of fever at lunchtime, it means simply that she felt that she's ill. كانت بصحة جيدة في الصباح ولكنها أصيبت بالحمى في الظهيرة. Okay, so catching a fever. أصيبت بالحمى. Number 3, he had an access of rage. Okay, feeling angry, feeling very much angry. He had an access of rage the minute he set eyes on his opponent, his enemy. ما إن لمح خصمه حتى ثارت ثائرته أو حتى ثار وفار, which is a classical expression in Arabic. Okay, so as you can see in the first 3 sentences, the very first meaning of the word access, a feeling, a kind of feeling, whether it is a feeling of despair or catching a fever or feeling angry. Okay, now the fourth meaning for the fourth sentence, it's very much common in American English. Remember that we are dealing with British English all the time. Okay, this is our concern. But from every now and then, we'll be mentioning some special information about American English. This fourth one is common in the USA. There was an access of dissatisfaction in the courtroom as the defendant was given a light sentence. Okay, an access of dissatisfaction, it means that people were not satisfied about the sentence. They were not happy about it. ازداد استياء الحاضرين في قاعة المحكمة عندما صدرت عقوبة مخففة على المتهم. Okay, so again in the 4 sentences we are dealing with a feeling. Okay, now let's see these observations. You have to remember this is very, very important. As a general rule on translating from English into Arabic, it's advised to use a verbal sentence. That is, when you are translating, that is جملة فعلية. When we are translating, a general rule is that to use, it's very much acceptable in Arabic to use the verbal sentence or الجملة الفعلية. This does not mean that الجملة الاسمية or the nominal sentence is not important or it's not acceptable. No. Okay. Let's see verbal sentence. nominal sentence. I'll give you an example for one sentence that could be translated in both ways, but of course the verbal is much acceptable. This has to do to the difference in the nature of each language. We are dealing with two different languages, two totally different languages. As you know, Arabic is a Semitic language. لغة سامية من اللغات السامية. Okay, and it's an inflectional language. By inflectional language I mean لغة إعرابية. لغة قائمة على العلامات الإعرابية اللي هي الفتحة، الضمة، الكسرة. Unlike English, which is completely different from Arabic, English is a Germanic language. Okay, Germanic language that belongs to the Germanic group. For instance, German, English is very much similar to German, by the way, and it's a structural language. That is based on a structure which is subject, mainly it's subject verb. Okay, like مثلا, for instance, the bomb exploded. Now this is a complete sentence. Okay, or we can add and say subject, verb, and then complement. That is something to complete the meaning. A complement any element that completes the meaning of the sentence. For instance, if we say the children are in the room, in their room. So this part between the square brackets is called the complement. Okay, now let's see a sentence, a very simple sentence. Let's go back to the sentence. For instance, the bomb exploded. We could translate it in two different ways. A, انفجرت القنبلة, or القنبلة انفجرت. Now which is the best, which is better? This one. The verbal sentence, okay? This has to do with the nature of Arabic. Now, if you remember, I told you at the very beginning of this lecture that context is very important. We have to consider it. Also, we have to consider the nature of language. And it's said that each language is sui generis. Sui generis. This is a Latin term or a Latin expression which means that each language has its own features that makes it different from other languages. And we have to be aware of this very much because this will help us a lot in translation. Now the aim of any translation is to reach original composition. By original composition, we mean that what is our translation? The translation or the translation text, the translation with the product of translation should appear as original. For instance, if I'm translating from English into Arabic, so we call this, of course, the SL. If our source language is English and our TL is Arabic, the product of the TL should appear as if it's originally written in Arabic and it's not a translation. Now let's go back to the sentences of access. Okay. In translation 3, the expression is حتى ثار وفار. The expression حتى ثار وفار is idiomatic in Arabic. Again, as this takes us back to what I've been saying about the original composition and about the nature of English. Again, I'd like to remind you that all the time you have to be reading a lot in both English and Arabic, not only to have general knowledge about the world around us, but also to acquire the structure and the vocabulary of both languages. In translation 4, there plus verb to be should be translated into Arabic as either جملة فعلية and sometimes جملة اسمية. Let's see, let's go back to sentence number 4. Okay, there was an access of dissatisfaction in the room. Okay, now there this will take us to the rule of translating there. Okay. Again, so I've been discussing with you several rules. Now the first rule that I've been discussing is that you have to use in most translations into Arabic the verbal sentence. That is الجملة الفعلية. نترجم الجملة من إنجليزي لعربي جملة فعلية في العربي. طيب هنشوف ايه حكاية there بقى. There plus verb to be في أي زمن. سواء كان الزمن ده present or past مش مشكلة. المهم verb to be ده في طريقتين. يا إما verbal يعني فعلية زي ما اتفقنا، أو nominal اللي هي اسمية. هنشوف two examples على كلمة there plus verb to be. Okay. A verbal. There was unrest in Belfast. Now let's have a look at this translation. وقعت بعض القلاقل المشاكل الاضطرابات في Belfast. ايه Belfast دي؟ What's this Belfast? Belfast is the capital of North Ireland. احنا عارفين ان انجلترا او المملكة المتحدة مكونة من England, Ireland, North and South, Wales and other parts. Okay, now Belfast, South Ireland is already a part, has become an independent country. Okay, والعاصمة بتاعتها its capital is Dublin. North Ireland اللي هي أيرلندا الشمالية they seek independence from the UK. Okay, والcapital بتاعتهم اسمها Belfast. Okay, now let's see how there is translated into a nominal sentence. There is a book on the table. never ever translated as هناك أو يوجد. غلط جدا. It's simply it is simply as we can see على المنضدة كتاب. جملة اسمية. Okay. واحنا and we know from the rules of Arabic grammar. عشان كده انا دايما بقول لكم ارجوكم راجعوا اقروا كتير. على المنضدة كتاب جملة اسمية فيها المبتدأ نكرة والخبر شبه جملة، يبقى يجب تقديم الخبر وتأخير المبتدأ. يبقى خبر مقدم شبه جملة لأن المبتدأ نكرة. Okay, so this takes us back to the rules of Arabic grammar. وقعت بعض القلاقل في بلفاست. بلفاست علامات الاستفهام الكتيرة دي غيروا اكتبوا كلمة بلفاست زي ما احنا شايفين. Okay, nominal sentence جملة اسمها there is a bird on the tree. على الشجرة طائر. Okay, نفس القصة جملة اسمية المبتدأ نكرة والخبر شبه جملة مقدم. Beware that there plus verb to be is never translated into هناك into Arabic as هناك أو يوجد أو حطوا slash. Okay. طيب. Let's have a look at this part which is another meaning for the sense or a sense of the word access, which is road or way. So the word access, meaning or sense number A, which is a feeling. B, road or way. In this sentence, the only access to the farmhouse is across the fields. The only access to the farmhouse is across the fields. So access here means way. لا يمكن الوصول إلى كوخ المزرعة إلا عبر الحقول. Okay? The only problem with the new project established in the desert at high cost is the lack of good access roads. The lack of good access roads. Okay. المشكلة الوحيدة التي تواجه المشروع الجديد الذي أنشئ في الصحراء بتكاليف باهظة هو عدم شق الطرق المعبدة إلى الموقع. The lack of good access roads. طرق صالحة للاستخدام يعني. Okay, now number C, this final sense of the word access is the original or literal meaning which implies a chance available or a right granted or a means provided. So the third sense means, which is actually the original meaning of the word access, the major meaning, the essential meaning of the word is that a chance or a right or something reached. Now let's see. So number C is the original meaning. Chance, right? Okay, or means. Now let's see examples for this. Students must have access to good books. Okay? To have access to good books, to be able to reach, to be able to use. لابد من تمكين الطلاب من الاطلاع على الكتب القيمة. Okay? So to have access تمكين الطلاب. One criterion of judging a country's advancement is women's access to education. Okay, how do women reach being granted this right to learn? One criterion of judging a country's advancement is women's access to education. من معايير الحكم على تقدم بلد من البلدان إتاحة فرصة التعليم للمرأة. So it's women's access إتاحة الفرصة. In the previous sentence تمكين الطلاب. So can you see this? Only high officials had access to the emperor. Had access to the emperor, that is to be able to contact, to communicate with. Okay. كان حق الاتصال بالإمبراطور مقصورا على كبار المسؤولين. Okay. To have access to the emperor, that is حق الاتصال به, to communicate with, to deal with. Now this sentence, okay, petrochemical industries in the oil-rich countries have the advantage of easy access to cheap feedstock. Okay, petrochemical industries in the oil-rich countries have the advantage of easy access to cheap feedstock. تتمتع الصناعات البتروكيميائية في الدول الغنية بالبترول بميزة هامة وهي سهولة الحصول على المواد الأولية الرخيصة. Okay, so again الحصول على. Okay. Number 11, the poor have no access to advanced medical treatment. To have access to medical treatment, that is to make use of, to benefit from. لا يستطيع الفقراء الانتفاع بأساليب العلاج الطبي المتقدمة. So الانتفاع بأساليب العلاج. Okay. The last one, yes, is aspiring businessmen should have access to cheap credit. Okay. Should have access to cheap, okay, that is being given the right to. من حق رجال الأعمال الطامحين أن يقترضوا الأموال من البنوك بفائدة ضئيلة. So again, let's go back to this third sense of the word, that is the original one, which means in sentence again, to remind you, sentence number 7, to have access to good books, that is to be able to use. Okay. Women's access to education, that is giving women the chance to learn, to give a chance. To have access to the emperor, that is to be able to communicate with, in sentence number 9. Sentence number 10, petrochemical industries, okay, to have easy access to cheap stock, that is سهولة الحصول على, again to be able to reach, to have, to be given the chance to have. And in sentence number 11, to have access to medical treatment, that is benefiting from making uses of a service, making use of a service. For this last sentence, we have two translations actually, 12a and 12b. To have access to cheap credit, that is أن من حقهم اقتراض الأموال بفائدة رخيصة. That is a right given to them. All right. Now let's go back again and sum up what we have been discussing in this lecture. Okay. We have the word access. For the word access, we have three meanings. Now, today we are going only to discuss the word access. We'll keep action and advice for another lecture. Access actually has three major meanings. Let's go back and remember them together. Number one is a feeling, for instance, as a feeling of dissatisfaction. Okay. For number B, it means a road or a way. Okay, the only access to the farmhouse was, etc. And finally, the sentences from until sentence number 12, we are dealing with a chance or a means or a right. Okay? Now let's have a look at and make a comparison of the 12 sentences we are talking about. We'll see that in most of the sentences we are using the verbal sentence in translation. Okay. عندما سمع بانهيار مشروعه. This is sentence 1. sentence 2 كانت بصحة جيدة. ما إن لمح خصمه ازداد استياء الحاضرين. لا يمكن الوصول in sentence number 5 لا يمكن الوصول إلى كوخ المزرعة. In sentence number 6 it's the only one so far which is using a nominal sentence. المشكلة الوحيدة لا بد من تمكين الطلاب again من معايير الحكم. كان حق الاتصال. This is number 9. تتمتع الصناعات البتروكيميائية. The poor have no access. لا يستطيع الفقراء. يجب أن يكون من حق رجال الأعمال الحصول على القروض الرخيصة. So you see, according to the nature of the Arabic language, we have to use in most cases the verbal sentence. Again, remember what we have been discussing about the use of the expression there plus verb to be, which is observation number 3 in translation. There plus verb to be should be translated into Arabic as either a verbal sentence or a nominal sentence. And we have to be aware that there plus verb to be is never translated into Arabic as يوجد أو هناك. Okay? Now to make sure that you have actually understood what I have been discussing so far, let's have a look at the exercise on page 31. If you could please open your books on page 31, and we have 4 sentences. Okay, now number 1. Okay, all children should have access to basic education. Now which sense do you think is this one in the very first sentence? Okay, yes, it's sense number 3, which is the original meaning of the word, which is to have access to. It means to be given a chance to do something or to make use of or to be granted a right to do something. Okay, now this sentence could be translated in the following ways. Yes, before doing this, I'd like to remind you or to tell you something. There is nothing called model translation or the ideal translation. We all can produce various translations of the same sentence according to our background information, to our nature, okay? But as long as it fulfills the rules of translation and keeps them, so there is no problem, okay? Now let's see, the first translation is من حق جميع الأطفال الالتحاق بمرحلة التعليم الأساسي. Okay? By the way, these translations are by some of you who come in who are able to attend the classes. Okay. Or لابد من إتاحة. You remember the sentence لابد من تمكين إتاحة الفرصة للأطفال الالتحاق بمرحلة التعليم الأساسي. So these are the translations for the very first sentence, which is all children should have access to basic education. Now let's see sentence number 2. The accessibility of foodstuffs in urban areas depends on an efficient transport system. يعتمد. Of course, the accessibility means being able to make use of. يعتمد توافر المواد الغذائية في المناطق الحضرية على نظام نقل فعال. Okay, and notice rural areas, مناطق ريفية, and urban areas, مناطق حضرية. Okay. Again, the accessibility of foodstuffs in urban areas depends on an efficient transport system. Okay. All right. Now let's see. يعتمد توافر المواد الغذائية في المناطق الحضرية على نظام نقل فعال. Now sentence number 3. Okay. The uneducated have no access to advanced technology. Okay. All right. Now let's see the translation, then I'll discuss with you something. لا يستطيع الأميون التعامل مع وسائل التكنولوجيا المتقدمة. Okay. All right. The uneducated have no access to advanced technology. Means that they are not able to do it. لا يستطيع الأميون التعامل مع وسائل التكنولوجيا المتقدمة. Okay. Before moving to the last sentence, okay, let me do it. Then I'll just draw your attention to something. May I have access to your library? May I have access to your library? It simply means, may I use it? May I have a look at it? هل يمكنني الاطلاع على مكتبتك؟ Okay. هل يمكنني الاطلاع على مكتبتك؟ Okay. All right. Something which is very important when you translate something which is in the opposite. For instance, we have happy, which means سعيد, and we have unhappy. If you have an adjective that is preceded by a prefix that gives the opposite, okay, some people would say غير سعيد. Now this is very wrong in Arabic. If you want to translate a negated word, don't use it in the negative also in Arabic. In most cases, but instead of saying this, you could say حزين. Okay? So with the uneducated, as you have been doing it, okay, it's very wrong to say, for instance, غير المتعلمين. It's true that it's correct. It's true that this word غير المتعلمين, it's correct in Arabic and acceptable, etc. But if you say a positive word showing the negative idea, okay, so we would say al-ummiyun. Okay, now this is the end of it. Okay. In the last sentence we have a question, so we have to do it. Now I think that is enough for today, and thank you. Hoping that you would revise what we have been saying, and my advice is to try to do it as much as quick as possible so that you would have enough time to revise and study. All right, this is the end of our lecture today. Thank you very much, and I hope that you have understood what I've been telling you. It's easy. Just I'll sum up what I've been saying. Remember that context is very important in translation. The idea of original composition is very important. Be aware of the nature of the language you are translating to, that is the target language. The word access has three senses of meaning, which is number one, a feeling, number two, a way or a road, number three, a means reached, and a right granted or a chance given. When we translate, we have to consider that we are using the verbal sentence in most translations. Remember also, finally remember also that when you translate there plus verb to be, sometimes it's translated in a verbal sentence and sometimes in a nominal sentence, but all the time, never ever translate it as يوجد or هناك. Thank you very much.